tried some different workplaces that didn't go well for me, and it was painful. I often thought of giving up, but I eventually got to the right place. For now, anyways, along with several of my peers, I am currently appearing as an actor on a public service announcement that is aired regularly on E-channel television. I hope you get the chance to see it on TV, but if you don't, please visit www.LiveWorkPlay.ca and check it out. I am still getting used to my new responsibilities as a self-advocate and contributing services, but I keep pushing forward. One of the biggest changes in my life was moving in with my family home. Thanks to my experience in housing projects and other LiveWorkPlay initiatives, my family and I decided that I would live in a real home of my own, not in an institution. I have had to push myself many times to overcome barriers to my new life in my own condo apartment, but everyone goes through this stress of making their way in the world. We should not deny people with intellectual disabilities this experience. It is better for the individual, for the family, for provincial taxpayers, and for local communities to support people with intellectual disabilities to take greater control of their own lives and live with greater independence. I won't pretend to understand all of Bill 77. I do understand that the developmental service system is very complicated. At LiveWorkPlay, we also believe it is possible to establish simple and powerful goals for the legislation. There are some basic positions that LiveWorkPlay would like to see emphasized in Bill 77. I understand that our largest institutions are closed, but at LiveWorkPlay, we believe that government of Ontario should consider it as a starting point. The closing of major institutions is important, but your work is not done. Having an intellectual disability is not a criminal offense, so why should many of us be forced into shared living arrangements with strangers and have others decide what when we'll eat, how we'll express our sexuality, what drugs we take, and how we'll spend our day. Housing choices for people with intellectual disabilities should be the same as they are for most everyone else. To live in an apartment or a house that we rent or buy. If we need support, we will invite that support into our home. We will decide. Yes, we need help to organize and pay for the supports we need, but we should be in charge of determining who those supports will be and who will provide them. The province is currently directing enormous sums of money to institutional forms of housing with no funds of any kind available to support people with intellectual disabilities to live in real homes of their own. Bill 77 should support the development of innovative non-institutional housing solutions in addition to individualized funding for related support costs. We must find ways to give all people with intellectual disabilities the daily living support they need without denying the basic freedom that none of us in our society take for granted. Bill 77 should clearly establish life in a real home as a goal to be supported for all people with intellectual disabilities. Now, about how hard it was to learn to make my own choices and decisions. And that help that I received from LiveWorkPlay, my family, and my support network. This brings me to our second issue of concern: developmental decision-making and individualized funding. I love my parents and they are a valued resource, but I am fortunate in that they are not my only means of decision-making support, and that is spiritual. It is important right now for my own personal growth, and it is also important for the future, so that the past and my parents will not render me helpless. Bill 77 must recognize that people with intellectual disabilities are going to need help with the responsibilities inherent in an individualized funding model. This help must not be about deciding for us. It must be about presenting information in a way that works so we can make our own informed decisions. This is really no different from a non-disabled person getting help from a lawyer or financial advisor. But when it comes to people with intellectual disabilities, decisions are far too often made on our behalf. This is one of the main reasons we are known as a vulnerable population, and why we are in fact victimized at rates that dramatically exceed the experience of the average citizen. People with intellectual disabilities are trained to be vulnerable by a developmental service system that teaches us to be constantly submit to the authority of others. Far too often we are denied the lead role in shifting our own lives, and that must change. We strongly encourage the Standing Committee to recognize the need for this change and take steps to ensure that the respect for the rights of people with intellectual disabilities as capable decision makers and adequate planning and resources allocated to support decision making. To make this possible, Bill 77 must clearly state the right of self-determination for people with intellectual disabilities. We recommend that such a statement has a place in the first line of the preamble of the new legislation. People with intellectual disabilities have the right and responsibility to live as fully included members of their community, their province, and their country. Thank you for your time, and that concludes your presentation.
Thank you very much. Great job. The last presenters for this morning are Plainfield Community Homes.